What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining in on another edition of the TriStar Sports Podcast. I am your host, Justin Hawkins, as always. Pleasure to be with you. The Tennessee Titans have started, or at least the rookies, have started rookie minicamp this week. It started yesterday. They reported on Thursday, went through meetings, all that good jazz, and hit the practice field yesterday, open to the media. So we're going to see some media availability for the Titans rookies, including quarterback Cam Ward and the likes. Today we've got a really good show for you. We're going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans rookies and the numbers that they have gotten / chosen, and kind of the little bit of the news that Warren Moon has given Cam Ward permission to wear number 1. Comes out of retirement, and Cam Ward can now wear the number 1. Should NFL jerseys be retired? Or if they are retired, should they stay retired? So we got a really good show for you coming up today. We're going to break down all of that. Got some really good content coming up next week, post-Titans rookie minicamp. As OTAs get started, we're going to be breaking down position by position for the Tennessee Titans, what the Titans still need in free agency, what can they look forward to this offseason. A lot of good stuff coming up. But for today, let's talk about rookie numbers. Now, before we get into each number by number, we're going to be talking about Oilers legend Warren Moon and Cam Ward's introductory press conference. Day 2 of the NFL draft, right before the NFL draft of the second and third round that Friday, where Cam Ward had his introductory press conference, and when Mike Borgonzi, Brian Callahan, Chad Bringer, when they introduced Cam Ward, they had a little special guest. Warren Moon comes up, and he has a jersey in his hand, and he gives him the number 1 and permission to wear that for the franchise. Now, it kind of gives a little bit of news that, Warren Moon says that, he would hope that the Oiler jersey, at least wearing number 1, would never be worn again. That was one of the big decision makers and why he wanted to give Cam Ward that number 1 overall. Of course, I think it was back in the earlier 2000s, Warren Moon had his jersey retired. I don't remember the exact date, but Warren Moon, famously, I think he's the first African American to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He's both. He played his career in both the NFL and the CFL with the Edmonton Eskimos. He played 17 NFL seasons from 1984 to 2000 with the Oilers, Vikings, Seahawks, and Chiefs. And he, I believe, is in the Hall of Fame for both the NFL and CFL, if I am not mistaken. One of the first African-American players to ever do that in history. So basically, let's kind of break down what exactly Warren Moon said in this news drop that Cam Ward would be taking that number 1. The number 1 jersey comes out of retirement. I have a lot of respect for this young man right here, Warren Moon said. A Hall of Famer. Moon threw for almost 50,000 yards in 17 NFL seasons. A lot of our journey is similar. This is a quote. A lot of our journey is similar as far as all things go. He was told throughout the journey about not being good enough. Nobody wanted to give him that great opportunity, but he just kept fighting, kept working, kept showing leadership, perseverance, and here he is today, the number 1 overall pick in the National Football League draft. So that's the reason why I wanted to be here and let him know how proud I am of him. Those are some really strong words from, probably the best quarterback that's ever put on. I mean, he's never put on a Titans uniform, but he's a part of the franchise. We can debate all day long whether you think that the Houston Oilers are the part of the Tennessee Titans franchise, but let's be real. The Houston Oilers are what the Titans are, right? Bud Adams, way back when, couldn't get a stadium built in Houston. Said, you know what, we're moving the team. They come out to Middle Tennessee. They go to Memphis. They're the Tennessee Oilers. They move to Nashville, play in Vanderbilt for a season, and become the Tennessee Titans after some rebranding. The Tennessee Titans are the Houston Oilers. They may not be the same jersey. They may not be the same, the same cities, but they are the same franchise. So when you have a jersey that's retired, it doesn't matter if it's Oilers or Titans. But when Warren Moon retired the jersey, got his jersey retired, it was with the Tennessee Titans organization. So a lot of strong words for Cam Ward. from Warren Moon. Basically also mentioned that he's going to be a big part of the franchise. He's going to be a big part in, if Cam Ward needs some help, if he needs some mentoring, Warren Moon is going to be there for Cam Ward, is basically what he's getting at. He also mentioned that he never wanted to see the number 1 jersey worn in a Houston Oilers uniform. So that kind of brings some news drop that the Titans probably will be getting new uniforms in the coming seasons, coming years. Probably with 2027-2028 season, I believe, is when the new Nissan Stadium will be opening. I believe that's probably when they're going to just rebrand and get some new uniforms. Honestly, we can talk about the uniforms. Not going to go very long on it, of course. Not a big fan. I have a Derrick Henry jersey, and I also have a Jeffrey Simmons jersey. Derrick Henry jersey is of the most recent uniform style, where the Jeffrey Simmons jersey is the new current. I don't like the numbers. They're just too, they trying to incorporate the sword aspect of it. The numbers are too thin, and with the kind of like the pointed tips on the numbers, they can be hard to read from up top in the bowls, or even in the press box, really, because I've been in the Titans press boxes before as a member of the social media team for 104.5 The Zone, covering the team. Just not a big fan of the uniform, so I hope they kind of go to similar to what the San Francisco 49ers wear, kind of like the retro style, big old block letters kind of thing, maybe a little bit of undertone, kind of shadowing border kind of thing. I love the way that the numbers itself are with the 49ers. So anyways, we're not here to really talk about the jerseys, because you know what, they're probably getting new jerseys. Last weekend was the Kentucky Derby. Warren Moon loves to go to the Kentucky Derby. Kay Adams, she did a show from the Kentucky Derby, and he said, yes, they are getting new uniforms. I've seen them. They're nice. Obviously not going to give him any details, but they are coming soon. So that's probably why Warren Moon said, you know what, as long as the Houston Oilers jersey will never be worn again, and I don't have to see the number 1, my number 1, be put on an Oilers jersey, it's fine. So I think that's what he does. So Cam Ward gets number 1 jersey. It was kind of funny in the introductory press conference. Cam Ward jokingly said, yeah, I had to pull up some Warren Moon tape on YouTube and to see if he was legit. And in fact, he is legit. So some cool stuff there. Cam Ward goes with the number 1 jersey. So let's look at the other rookies. We've got wide receiver Alec Ayumanor, who's a 4th-round draft pick. He's going with the number 5 out of Stanford. Chimere Dike wore number 17 in college with Florida. He will be going with 17 in the Titans uniform. Safety Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State. He is going with the number 23. Defensive back Marcus Harris out of Cal, who also transferred from Idaho before. He will be going with the number 26, wore number 5 in college. Running back Khalil Mullings from Michigan is going with the number 28. Obviously, Chris Johnson wore that number, and some others. Outside linebacker Oluwafemi Oladejo will be wearing number 53. So obviously, you know the history of 53, Keith Bullock and the likes. We talked last episode about where Oluwafemi Oladejo fits in the roster, and how he has to step up because the depth is just not there. There's not a lot of depth on the defensive line, period, whether it be interior or on the outside. So Oluwafemi Oladejo needs to make a great impact in year 1. Right on that opposite side of Arden Key, Draymond Jones, Lorenzo Carter, Oluwafemi Oladejo. Really needs to have some high impact this season. I don't think you're going to see it. He still is developing. I mean, look, people, he played and transferred from off-ball linebacker to edge rusher. Game 2, I think, of this past year. So he had about 5 sacks, 4.5 sacks, something like that. So we got to give him time. Okay, so Jackson Slater, the offensive lineman out of Sacramento State, is going to be donning the number 64. I believe Nate Davis wore that when he was a member here, a right guard. Tight end Gunnar Helm will be donning the 84. I believe Nick Vanette wore that last season. Gunnar Helm wore 85 in college, and of course, that is what Chigakonkwo is wearing. The undrafted free agents have yet. They just were signed yesterday, or at least they announced the signings on, maybe actually it was Thursday whenever they reported. Xavier Restrepo, we've seen some video from practice come out, and he's donning the number 87. He wore 7 in college at Miami. There's been some videos of Cam Ward throwing to Restrepo in practice, and I think we're going to see a lot of that in practice. We're going to see how much Cam Ward favors Restrepo with the chemistry that's there, and then how that differs from the other receivers and the tight ends in the room. I think what we're going to see out of practice and what I'm looking forward to in practice is just to see all the videos from the media outlets, Jim Wyatt, Buck Rising, A to Z Sports, some other, Teron Davenport with ESPN and such, of what videos pop out. Basically what we're looking for is just some good content. We as a society who loves sports crave content. And the moment Cam Ward put on the jersey is how sexy it is for him to wear that number 1, and just for the Titans to be back and have their guy and have the savior of the franchise. I don't know if we can really call him that because he hasn't taken a snap in an NFL offense yet. But some good stuff coming there. So we've got the numbers. So now let's have the discussion of just kind of a controversial topic, and I think basically, especially with the whole Abdul Carter thing coming out, with him asking for LT, Lawrence Taylor's number, for 56 with the New York Giants. He wore 11 in college at Penn State. Phil Simms wore that with the Giants. He got denied there. I think with that, it's a very controversial topic of, should players even ask for these numbers that are retired, or should these numbers be retired in the first place? Should these numbers come out of retirement? What do we make of this? So let's first ask the question: should NFL numbers be retired? And then when we ask that question, then the next question is, if the number is retired, should they come out of retirement? And of course, the third question is, should a player even ask for that number if it is retired? Okay, so let's start with just the Titans example, right? So Cam Ward wore number 1 in college at Miami. He wore it at Incarnate Word, I believe, and then he also wore it at Washington State. I think it was said, basically when Cam Ward realized, yes, I'm probably going to go to the Tennessee Titans. They're the number 1 pick. They love me. I love them. I want to be the number 1 pick. He reached out to Warren Moon. He didn't want to at first, thought about it, talked it over with his family, talked it over with Amy Adams Struck, the owner. And when they realized that the Oiler uniforms are probably not coming back for the Tennessee Titans, he said yes. Okay. So the first question that we're going to ask in this instance is, should Cam Ward have even asked? My answer would be no. If a number is retired, probably should stay retired, and you shouldn't even ask. There's a reason why that number 1 is retired, right? Cam Ward does not need to be compared to Warren Moon. Warren Moon does not need to be compared to Cam Ward. They should not be in the same sentence. The only sentence you should say is, who is the better quarterback in the franchise's history, right? You shouldn't say, okay, well, Cam Ward's wearing number 1, the last person to wear number 1. Well, actually, the last person to wear number 1 in the Titans uniform, I think, was the kicker, Gary Anderson, back in the early 2000s. But nonetheless, when you think of number 1, you think of Warren Moon. Now, of course, it's not the same jersey, but still, the franchise is the franchise. It doesn't matter how many different teams that spawn off of it. A franchise is a franchise. So let's ask the basic question. Should an NFL jersey number be retired? And I think that's the answer that can be most controversial, because a lot of people say, no, it's just a number. Whether a player was great in that number or not, does that jersey need to be retired? And my answer, I say yes. You can retire a jersey number, but there has to be certain accolades and certain steps to go for that number to be retired. What did you do in that uniform that was so great that can never be replicated, and you never want anybody to ever wear that jersey again? Okay, so let's go to Warren Moon, for example. I'm going to pull up his stats. Warren Moon, as a member of the Houston Oilers, was very high caliber. Obviously made it to the Hall of Fame. over 49,000 yards passing. So he played from 1984 to 1993, right? 1984 to 1993. Played 9 seasons. 10 seasons, I'm sorry. All right, so in those seasons, he passed for 3,300 yards, 2,700 yards, 3,400, 2,800, 2,300, 3,600, 4,600, 4,600, 2,500, and 3,400 yards. So Warren Moon's is the franchise's only 4,000-yard passer. Steve McNair was awfully close to it, but he threw for the most touchdowns he ever threw was in the 4,600-yard passing season where he threw for 33 touchdowns. He also threw 13 interceptions. And so Cam Ward did a lot of great things as a member of the Houston Oilers, right? Rushing, in that same season, which was, what year was that? 1990 for Houston. He rushed for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Warren Moon did a lot of things. Was very athletic, easy to escape the pocket. Had a big arm, good arm talent, good vision down the field. I think, there's a reason why you retire that number. Okay, because if we pull up Steve McNair's stats, which it's funny if you look up Steve McNair on ESPN's website, it pulls it up with the Baltimore Ravens, even though he did not play for them as long as he did with the Titans. 2 seasons into his career, rest in peace. But so Steve McNair, the most he ever threw for was 3,300 yards, or almost 3,400 yards. So never was a 4,000-yard passer. Ryan Tannehill was close. I can't remember. I think it was 2020 season, 2021 season. He was very close to 4,000 yards. Let's see, I'm pulling that up. So back in 2020, he had 3,819 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That was his best season. So technically, in terms of best seasons, while Steve McNair was a MVP or co-MVP with Peyton Manning. What year was that? That was back in, that doesn't say, 2003. Right? Okay. So back in 2003 was Steve McNair's co-MVP season. That's when he threw for 3,215 yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he also ran for 138 yards and 4 touchdowns in that season as well. So obviously we can't really argue that the best quarterback in a Titans uniform is Steve McNair, but the best quarterback in the franchise's history is Warren Moon. Steve McNair also has his jersey retired. So should jerseys be retired? I say yes. It depends on, the certain accolades and the certain standards that you reach. We're not just giving them out. Look, Derrick Henry probably is not going to get his jersey retired. Chris Johnson's probably not going to get his jersey retired. Both of them had 2,000-yard season. Derrick Henry almost did it twice. He almost had actually, he almost has done it 3 times. Last year had, 1,900 yards, was about 80 yards shy of reaching 2,000 last year in Baltimore. If he had not gotten hurt back in 2021 season, would Derrick Henry have rushed for 2,000 yards again? It's very possible. But Eddie George has his jersey retired. Steve McNair has his jersey retired. Warren Moon's got his jersey. They all have reached certain standards in a Tennessee Titans uniform. While I think definitely Derrick Henry has reached certain standards, one of the best rushers in the Titans' history, right behind Eddie George, continues to climb the ranks of NFL touchdowns, continues to climb the ranks as far as yardage goes. But I think jerseys should absolutely be retired. Now, the thing is, you can't be like the Chicago Bears, because I saw this yesterday. Luther Burden, when choosing his number, made the comment of there's too many jerseys that are already taken. They have, I think it was 14 jerseys that are retired. Okay, that limits your standards. I think he ended up choosing 87. He was number 3 in college at Missouri. So I think the problem is the good numbers get taken, and they're taken for a reason. Now, the other aspect to this that we can say, yes, okay, jersey was retired. There was a reason why it was retired. They had great stats. They had great impact on the team. Led them whether they led them to a Super Bowl, win, loss, whatever. Steve McNair did that. Eddie George did that. Derrick Henry has not. AFC Championship game. I think there has to be like those standards. Like what do we want to see? What kind of impact do we want for these players to make for their jersey to be retired? Do they need to be like the Super Bowl MVP? Do they need to bring home that Super Bowl? Do they need to have, if you're a passer, do they have multiple 4,000-yard passing seasons? Do they need to, be one of the, you need to win an MVP? Steve McNair did that. Do you need to, what do you need to see? But I think the other aspect to this is something that like what LSU or Penn State does, which is they have these jerseys that are meant for the best player on the team. Okay? They're not retired jerseys by any means, because I don't know if you can retire a jersey in college. Of course you can, because Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter both got their numbers retired in Colorado last season. So of course you can. Nobody will ever wear the number 2 or the number 12 in Colorado ever again. And I think that's a bunch of baloney. Right? Shedeur Sanders didn't do enough to have his jersey retired. You can argue that Travis Hunter did. Won the Heisman Trophy, played both sides of the ball, played almost 100% of the snaps all season for 2 seasons. I get that. Okay, there's not a lot to argue there, but it's kind of bogus that Shedeur Sanders got his jersey retired. He's probably the only jersey retirement in the history of college football, and then gets selected in the 5th round. Mel Kiper still is probably ruling from that. But I think what we see, I can't remember what you call it, like with Penn State, but the number 11, right? Abdul Carter wore it, Micah Parsons wore it, I think LeVar Arrington wore it. So all these pass rushers, linebackers for the best players for Penn State wear the number 11. And I think with good intention, legacy numbers, that's what they're called. Should the NFL switch to legacy numbers? So, right? So the best legacy to wear number 1 in the Tennessee Titans is number 1. Is Warren Moon, right? And then the next player, Gary Anderson, wore it. We're not going to say that, he was the best player, right? He's a kicker. I don't know how much of a kicker you can be the best player in your team. Unless you're kicking 70-yard bombs, right? But Warren Moon wears number 1. You can argue that that it could be a legacy number. Cam Ward, right? Best player on the team, number 1 overall draft pick. Legacy number, wear the number 1. I like the legacy numbers, right? Lawrence Taylor wore number 56 in New York. Abdul Carter wore the number 11 as part of the legacy number at Penn State. Continue the legacy number in New York. Get the 56. I like that aspect. But you have to pick one side of the ball, and you have to stay with that side, right? If you're going to retire the numbers, then you got to retire the numbers. Find your standards, retire the number, and then the question becomes, should you unretire? Now, of course, this depends on the person or the franchise, but I think with the Titans, it falls into a little bit of a different category in the fact that the Oilers versus the Titans, different uniforms, same franchise, of course, but when you think of the Oilers, you have to think about the Titans, but you don't. Aesthetically pleasing, right? Aesthetically, the Titans and the Oilers are different, right? Aesthetically wise. Realistically, they're not. Aesthetically, yes. Completely different color scheme, whatever. Just same franchise. I think that's the only reason why Warren Moon does it, right? But I think for the Giants' sake, why would Lawrence Taylor unretire the number 56 for Abdul Carter to wear it when his jersey that he wore, he would literally see somebody else wear it, right? Warren Moon will never see somebody wear the Oilers jersey ever again. Nobody will ever wear his color scheme, his uniform again. But the number 1 for a Tennessee Titans uniform is completely different. The Giants is not. Even if he wore Phil Simms number 11 in New York, you're going to be seeing somebody wear your jersey. I think that's where you draw that line, right? So the Titans come in a little bit different opportunity there. But I definitely think jerseys should be retired. But the more that you think about it, or the more that I think about it, I definitely kind of like the fact of a legacy number even better, right? But it has to be one number, though. You can't be having like Okay, Steve McNair wore number 9. Warren Moon wore number 1. Eddie George wore number 27. Derrick Henry wore 22. You can't have 5 legacy numbers. And, okay, the best running back is going to be wearing 22 or 27. The best quarterback can choose between 1 and 9. Like, we can't be doing that. You have to pick one number, just like Penn State wears number 11. The best player wears number 11. I can't remember what it is for LSU off the top of my head, but there's a lot of these colleges that does a legacy number. The best player wears that number. I love that, right? I think there's a lot of good tradition with that, a lot of history behind that, and a lot of pride that goes with it as well. You get the best player for your team, you wear the best player's number for this team. And then for the NFL, you retire the jersey. I don't think it should be unretired. And that's just my opinion. Of course, like I said, the Titans fall under a little bit of a different category between the two different styles of jersey. I don't think, even if the player decides yes, I don't think it should be an option. I really don't. I really don't think that unretiring jerseys should be an option. Once it's retired and it goes up in the rafters, what are you going to take it down? Warren Moon is going to stay in the rafters at number 1 with the Tennessee Titans. His number and name is always going to be visible in Nissan Stadium. And when they move stadiums to the new Nissan Stadium, it's still going to be there. But you're going to see somebody wearing the number 1, right? I think that's why the controversy is there and why it's so much of a hot topic of conversation right now, is because you've got all these kids that coming up in the NFL and they want, I don't care if you wore it in college or not, or it's the best player's number that's ever played, in that uniform, right? You shouldn't be asking. It shouldn't even be an option. You're not that player. Don't be compared to that player. Warren Moon and Cam Ward should not be in the same conversation. Cam Ward and Steve McNair should not be in the same conversation. I don't care if they're a player comp or not. They should not be in the same conversation, right? Cam Ward is Cam Ward. Steve McNair is Steve McNair. And Warren Moon is Warren Moon. 3 totally different players. I don't care if they have the same build. Steve McNair is actually a pretty good comp to Cam Ward. Good deep ball. Maybe not the most accurate deep ball thrower. Like 20 yards plus. He's not the most accurate, but he's got, good vision, good playmaking ability, good pocket escapability. Hard to take down, has kind of that Big Ben comp to him where, it's hard to tackle and, good to escape the pocket and keep his eyes downfield, making those tough contested throws. But I think that as far as jerseys go, yes, you can retire the number. No, it should not become unretired. And no, you shouldn't even ask. Don't ask. But with the Titans, like I said, I'm going to keep saying this, it's a bit of a different conversation. The Oilers and the Titans, it sounds like it's never going to be worn again. Titans getting new numbers, new jerseys. And I think that what you're going to see is I think those jerseys are probably going to have a little bit of Oiler color scheme to them. And I think that's why probably Warren Moon ultimately decided that he's fine with that. So a little bit more on Warren Moon and Cam Ward. So this is his full quote, right? So this is him giving, and the reason why he said, I want to give number 1 to Cam Ward. As far as the number and everything is concerned, I wore number 1 for a lot of different reasons, and I wore it for a long time, starting back in 1976 in college. I think I wore it very honorably for the Houston Oilers organization, to the point to where I created a Hall of Fame career for myself. Now I'm part of the Tennessee Titans family. My Houston Oilers jersey will probably never be worn again. I hope it won't. But the Tennessee Titans jersey is going to be worn by Cam, and Cam will be starting a new freshness in this organization to kind of revitalize it and get it back to where it was a number of years ago. One of the more successful organizations in the league, obviously dating back to the early 2000s, late 90s, when the Titans were competing for AFC championships, Super Bowl. We don't need to go down that topic. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do with this legacy, wearing this number, and I am proud of the things I did to establish my legacy with the time when I wore that number. And of course, he presented the number to him. They have a picture. And So at the end of the day, y'all want to leave a comment, YouTube, we'll put this up on Twitter and Facebook. Should NFL numbers be retired? Should they stay retired? And should players even ask for it? So, like I said, we got some really good content coming up. That's all that I've got for today. We're talking numbers, rookie minicamps up. We'll do some breakdown next week. Got some really good content for you. We're going to be breaking down position by position, what the Titans still need in free agency, what they could go after when training camp rolls around. What do they lack in depth on the roster, which is, spoiler alert, pretty much every position. What the Titans still need. And is it possible for the Tennessee Titans to do kind of what at least one team does every year, which is go that whole worst to first conversation, right? The Washington Commanders last year were worst in the division, and they went all the way to the AFC or the NFC Championship game. Now they play in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles were the division winners, so they didn't go worst to first, but they did what is a very rare opportunity in going to the NFC Championship in Jaden Daniels' rookie season. I don't think that's the expectations that we're looking for Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans this year, but I think what is a good expectation is for them not to finish worst in the division. Can they go from worst to wild card, to a playoff berth, second place in the division? What kind of expectations do we have for the Tennessee Titans? And we'll talk about that next week. Like I said, good content. This has been the TriStar Sports Podcast. Please follow along, like, subscribe. You can go, Twitter is at jhawkins_20. You can follow me on Facebook. Instagram is at jhawkinsuu12. Of course, my YouTube channel, which is where you're hopefully watching this currently. Otherwise, I don't know where you're watching it. But TriStar Sports Podcast, we talk all things Tennessee Titans, Nashville Predators, Tennessee Vols, Vanderbilt Commodores, anything in Tennessee sports or something that's related nationally. So appreciate you joining us. Follow along and stay up to date when we drop more content. This has been the TriStar Sports Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Hawkins, and until next time, we'll talk soon.